Canceled one by I could just let everybody no. You can put the button when you get going. Yeah. And then there's all the thing. Gotcha. Before we start talking, yeah, crash. Yes, that's me. If she did join. You might get not that we got on
My students came up with an accent, we don't even do that. Dean, can you hear us? We have the new owl installed.
I don't see the glowing eyes in the owl sound, but it's on here.
I don't see us. Is it all right, Dean?
Yes, are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can.
Very good.
Sounds good.
A view. Yeah. Sit higher. Almost.
There we go. Okay, it's 6 o'clock and I'll call us to order. All right, so everybody adjust the date due to the holiday. We have a guest speaker, it's Berger here. She's going to talk to us about the Towards Zero Death program. She should welcome you.
We want to take one of these and pass them around. Really good of the things that I felt. You want to, there you go. All right, so welcome everybody. I'm Tisha Bergner. I work at Wabasha County Public Health. Little background about me. I've worked at public health for 26, almost 27 years. And I do a bunch of different grants inside of public health. One of them being the Towards Zero Death Grant. And our focus on the Towards Zero Death Grant is to look at our roadways and work with law enforcement to keep the roadways safe. So next slide. A little bit of history about the TZD program quickly. The program was started in 2003. During that time, the fatalities on the roadways were really increased. It's a unique program that includes the Department of Public Safety, Health, and Transportation. So we work a lot together in those situations. It's modeled after Sweden's Vision Zero, which began in 1997. The vision is to prevent fatalities and serious injuries on the roadways. So when we have a crash in Wabasha County, the group, our coalition, our TZ coalition, looks at those injuries. And we also look at the fatalities to see what it is that is causing the issue. If it's something that we can work more on to prevent those types of crashes, or if those crashes happen because of an engineering issue or something like that. Our mission is to move Minnesota towards zero death on our roadways. We use education, enforcement, engineering, medical, and trauma services. This photograph is our new TZD photo. It was taken this year in Preston, Minnesota, right in front of the vet cemetery in the location. So when our new posters come out this year, this will be our new photo that is on that. Next. TZD is a cornerstone. We used to always say that we use the 4 E's to bring TZD to the table. So we used enforcement, engineering, education, and outreach, and then our emergency medical and trauma. But now we've added that 5th E because we find that the rest of them are super important. And that includes everyone else. So our legislatures, our judicial, our media. We like to pull the car seat tax that do our car seat safety in the counties together, and all of those. This slide is kind of interesting. If you look at 1995, at the edge, we had 597 traffic fatalities. And you can see the trend is going upward in that slide. And if we wouldn't have introduced the TZD program in 2003 to start looking at the zero deaths on the roadways, you would have seen that trend to keep going. But after we started doing those 5 or the 4 E's at that time, you can see that we started bringing those fatalities and serious injuries down on the roadways. So this slide here too is the same type of thing, and it's more about the serious injuries. So our goal is to keep bringing those down as well. So in 2022, these are the crash statistics by behavior. They're right now, the preliminary numbers for 2022 for that year shows 444 deaths. 117 of them were speed related compared to 171 in 2021. 84 were not wearing seatbelts compared to 110 in 2021, and 82 were motorcycles compared to 67 in 2021. So we can see that the motorcycles have increased by crash statistics compared to the 67. So that's definitely an education area that we need to look at. This one here shows male versus female, and it shows the ages of those that were killed or injured in those crashes. So it just kind of gives you a little breakdown. So that's in your slide packet. This one here has really become interesting. We have seen speed increase since COVID. It's really been an issue, I find, more than since COVID started, but it's become something that we're seeing a lot of now, where you'll see in the news that they're 93 miles per hour, over 100, that type of thing. This slide shows how much that has increased, and these are all for 100+ miles per hour in their vehicles. Wabasha County, we look at those statistics in the speed, the seat belts, the distracted driving, and the DWI alcohol related issues. And right now in Wabasha County, we are above state average in speed and in alcohol. So these are the factors that contribute to crashes on our roadways. A lot of the times it talks about the driver, the human error. It talks about the roadway, which is the environmental, and then it talks about the things that can happen within the vehicles. So engineering has a lot of goals that they work on in between to help prevent the crashes on the roadways. These are some of the things that have come up that they're working on to help mitigate those incidences. In rural intersection conflicting, they have the warning system. They have the intersection lighting, so you guys will notice in different areas in Wabasha County, they've added lighting, like on 42 going to Plainview, that lighting's been added. They've added more chevrons. They've increased the 6-inch edge lines. They do the center and edge rumble strips. There's also the flashing yellow arrows. In some areas, they have done the barrier cable that runs down the middle. And what that does is it prevents when the crash happens, it prevents those vehicles from going across into the other lanes. So you'll see those types of things. Of course, you know, they've added roundabouts. They've added the reduced conflict intersections, which is exactly what we call the J turn, which is what we put out on the edge of the highway. And all those types of things really help reduce the crashes on the roadways. So these are a few pictures of the different things that they've done. It's the median barrier in the middle. The other one is the J turn, which you guys are all familiar with because we have them here now. Pedestrian safety. We try to focus a little bit on bike and pedestrian safety. This isn't so much of an issue here in Wabasha County, but we find that in really big cities or in busy cities where there's lots of traffic, pedestrians are crossing the roadways, bike accidents or crashes can happen if people don't know the rules or the ways to ride. So we work a lot with SHIP and the state health improvement plan to make sure that we've got everything marked. Pedestrians know where to cross, you know, that type of thing. So all these are preventable. It's about trying to get out and get the education out there and making sure everybody's participating in the safe things. One of the things that they've come up with too, as you might have seen as you're going traveling this summer, is they've got the auto flagger. This is for work zone safety. This helps prevent the flag people from being injured and you know when they're working in the work zone. As you know, they also have they take the speed limits down while the work zones are active, and then the speed zone goes back up to a reasonable amount. I mean, a lot of times they have that posted. People don't always pay attention, but that's what they like to promote anyway. So this is the new speed limit signs that they can, you know, they set them electronically, they're run by solar, and that will help if people actually pay attention and follow those. Snowplow safety, they've put reflective on the back of the snowplows. It was a very inexpensive safety improvement. They went from 6 snowplow hits on I-35 in 2021 to 0 last year by adding this to the back of the snowplows to help with, you know, when you ever follow a snowplow, they create white dust, and that stripe actually has really helped with making that snowplow stand out. So year-to-date traffic. So as of July 7th, there were 169 traffic-related deaths on Minnesota roadways compared to 188 deaths at that time last year. So everybody's wondering why I'm here and what you can do. We like if we can get everybody involved. The more people we have involved in the Towards Zero Death project, the more we can accomplish getting our roadways down to 0. That's really the benefit. So we have the Southeast TZD Steering Committee. We have the local TZD Safe Roads Coalition. And then we have regional events. We also have the workshop that takes place in May. It's always at it has been always at the airport out in Rochester at the event center. So those are the kinds of things. If you don't want to travel, there's always the Zoom option, but what we're finding is it's time to bring everybody back to the table. It's nice to get everybody back in and start using all of the brains that we have to come up with some really great ideas to try and get our roadways down to 0. Inside the TZD grant, we work on victim impact speakers. We work on seatbelt counts. We try to come up with innovative, fun things to promote. So we do some extra activities out at the National Night Out, both at Kellogg and in Wabasha. We try to get into the schools and do different projects inside the schools. We work with the SAD students. We do the victim impact speaker, where a speaker comes in and talks about a death or a crash that has affected their family and what the kids can do to try to prevent that from happening to their families. There is seatbelt challenges. that have been, that they've come up with to get the kids to participate in groups, and they get in the vehicle, they have to buckle up in a certain amount of time. And then the team that does the fastest gets their name put on a trophy. Then they get to go to Rochester and participate in the big group. So there's lots of people come up with some really good ways to educate and get the population involved in Wabasha County. So it's kind of one of those things where we'd love to have people come to the table if they're interested. We also have the Towards Zero Death statewide conference coming up. That is November 13th and 14th this year. It'll be in Rochester. So you can hit me up if you don't remember. Otherwise, the link is in your slide to get registered. This poster that's on here was the one that every year the Southeast region rotates the counties that are responsible. This was our county poster several years ago. So our turn will be coming up again in the next few years. I said it would be fun to take this photo again now with those same kids because they've all changed so much and have become almost full adults at this point. And they're still alive and they're still here because they participate and they wear their seatbelts, and when they were little they used their car seats and did all the things to keep them safe. So any questions anybody has on the TZD program?
Just one comment. Sunday morning actually ran a whole segment just this week on the pedestrian deaths. And it was just like this alarming increase of like 40% in 40 years due to speed and distraction. And so I thought that was interesting that's a huge increase, and they recognize it as a big problem.
Yeah, it really is. We're, like I said, we're kind of fortunate here that's, it hasn't become an issue here. We're still considered under the state average, but no pedestrian death is, that's our goal, right? There shouldn't be any. And the speed is a huge factor. I mean, we're seeing people getting pulled over for 100+ miles an hour. I mean, there's no reason for that. So also, I think re-educating some of the individuals, again, one of the things that I see a lot around pedestrian safety too is they don't even stop to look, they just go. And then the driver needs to know that they need to stop. And if they're not paying attention, it only takes that split second to be looking, and it's not always a phone. It could be the radio. It could be, that they look the other way and that pedestrian comes out of nowhere. But yeah, everything is increasing. So it'd be nice to see a focus based around some of those things. We're having an increase of motorcycle crashes on Highway 60. And so we get those alerts right away. And inside of our coalition, when we meet them, we look at those to see what is the reason. They're taking the curve too fast. Is the curve not well enough marked with chevrons? Is it, they come in too hot? Is the motorcycle too big? Have they not taken a rider safety course? Are they wearing a helmet? Do they have the proper attire on, to help them survive a crash in those situations? So we try to look at that and take all those types of things and see what we can do to try and mitigate those crashes from happening. Keeps everybody alive. So any other questions, comments?
Thanks so much for joining us and inviting people back to the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, so if anybody wants to join the TVD coalition, you know where to find me.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Yes.
All right, we have another presentation, but we have time now for public comment. If you've never made public comment before, if you're online, just unmute yourself and go ahead and state your name and residence for the record. And the same here in council chambers, just on the podium so we can see and hear you. Do you have any public comment? Do you see anybody else online besides me?
Just kidding.
Okay. All right, I'm not seeing any here. Any changes or additions to the agenda?
Move to approve the agenda as is.
Very good. And we'll motion to a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. And then, as far as the presentation, I'm gonna kind of combine mine and Caroline's. Caroline's on a well-deserved vacation. she said she was gonna try to dial in, and I scolded her and said, you're on vacation, so hopefully she doesn't. All right, it's been very busy, June's been very busy, a lot of involvement from council in 4:30. The athletic field construction project began in earnest. There's a pre-construction meeting, and as you can see, lots of work has already started. Dangler was here, Dangler Landscaping was here when we got to do our groundbreaking the other day for the paper, so that was fun, and they engaged all the Wabasha Falcons Nest kids that were just coming from the pool. So thanks to everybody who was able to attend that. We're also very grateful, there's a co-chair, Ann Meininger and Troy Cassie are working on large gifts, and they're doing really well, so we're really, really happy for their leadership. Cora, who is the CETA grant administrator, assistant for our CETA grant on HVAC. Finished paperwork for Slippery's, this is from Caroline, so they're working through the West Side Tavern project, a Remax application, Fresh Walk, Extreme Image, and there are still requests coming in. However, funds are spoken for, but they're keeping a waiting list. Senator Drazkowski, staff is working to try to get Wabasha on the bonding tour for the Highway 60 realignment. We were lucky enough to be on the bonding tour in 2019, and so that would be good to get those committee members back. Jeff Follett and Caroline attended the League of Minnesota Cities Conference in Duluth. They got to tour some interesting housing projects, including some cottage style housing developments and an apartment rehab project done by the same development entity that owns the Anderson Hotel. And actually, Grant has reached out to me about kind of working together on perhaps some grant funding to get that project started. And do you want to say anything about that, Jeff? It sounds like it was pretty.
Well, so went on tour to port.
Yes, that's right. She said that. Yeah. We will have a signing ceremony for the Section 217D agreement. That will be Monday, July 24th at 5:30. It'll be at the National Legal Center Amphitheater, or the Open Space Amphitheater. This is to celebrate the formal partnership between the city and the Army Corps. And currently, Mike Flaherty is sending on final operating agreements to the Corner government. On the 27th, everybody knows, I think there was a neighborhood meeting, related to the street reconstruction. It was very well attended. The project will begin July 24th, road closure starting July 21st, which is Friday, which is not right. As a business owner, building owner, I don't know that there will be 48 hours of notice before water is shut down, but water shutdowns could be significant. They might last 3 to 6 hours. There will be limited vehicular access for deliveries or special needs, but coordination for that in advance with the on-site rep is critical. So there is one contact. They don't want people kind of contacting whoever they see. They wanted me to contact Russ Morgan. He's the construction project representative. And if you talk to people who did not go to that meeting, they can still talk to Katie in advance of the project starting. But once it's going, they need to talk to Russ, right? All right. We had a wonderful 4th of July. Thank you so much to Brian and his leadership in getting significant donations for that celebration. That's really great. It was weather allowed it to happen, so I wasn't sure right there at the end. The housing committee's been really busy. There will be a housing forum. The target is for developers, including local developers, but anyone would be welcome to attend. So if you want to put that on your calendar, that's going to be September 13th. We just adjusted the dates. I think the time is the same. I think it'll be about 9 to noon. It'll be at the golf course. And then we have somebody we have to recognize for 20 years of service. So Tony, you have to stand up. So Tony has been with the city since 2003 when the Zero Towards Zero Death program started. It seems like a really long time ago when I was thinking about what life was like. That was, just still very post-9/11. It's just a really different world, and well, it's gotten more complicated since. So Tony's been working with the city since then. What was your original higher position?
Worker.
All right. Well, how are you about? Yeah.
Just streets.
Yeah.
Streets.
So all these years later, we want to recognize him in his current role. Of course, he's the director of public works, and he's had an amazing commitment to the city, his department, his team, the administration, all the councils he served, members of the park boards and streets commissions. I'm sure there's been hundreds at this point, and the community. And I know that Tony fills the role that is not very often appreciated. And that is he's sort of like the walking public work or public affairs department of the city as well. A lot of things come to you and your team, and we know that, and your diplomacy, when you're out there in the community, and your ability to translate that so that we can get things accomplished is really helpful. I got to know Tony better before I had anything to do with him, really, from the city standpoint. We were Blandon buddies. We went to the Blandon Rural Leadership Development Program, and we must have been in a small group together, because I remember Tony single-handedly pretty much writing a song called "Oh, Home on the River." It was to the tune of "Oh, Home on the Range," And we were kind of struggling, we had to do this like skip thing, and I hate that stuff, even though I kind of like it, and Tony saved us, so it was a lot of fun to work with him, and I remember thinking, this could be, I mean, yeah, I can work with this guy, so that's when we got to know each other. And I think it's your attitude, Tony, that it's such a pleasure to work with you in so many capacities. In addition to your service to the city and your, you know, professional role, you also serve as a fighter. I learned 14 years, which is a really huge commitment too. So we just thank you for always being a candid person and positive and working through difficult projects that are often thankless and often difficult, challenging, long hours, and keeping a good team of people together to get that important work done. We know that lots gets done every day because of good leadership, so.
Thank
thanks
you,
so much.
thank you very much.
Yeah. And Caroline said she couldn't be here to share that. So I have nothing further from Caroline. How about any committee reports? We have had all of the meetings, I think. Did utilities meet?
They did, I wasn't there, but it was a 1.5 minute meeting.
Okay. So,
Just real quickly to touch a little more on fireworks.
Yeah.
I got to go help blow them off. Matt was there, but it's not all just fire department either.
Oh, yeah.
It's the fire department does a ton. There's a ton of guys, but we had ambulance members there. Austin was there helping. Just random community members, some from not the community, Kellogg Fire. And it's an all-day process. The Lions fed us dinner, but everybody there gives up their whole 4th of July to set up, anchor down pipe and boxes so they don't go flying all over the place, and it's a big safety thing too. So there's no messing around all the way up until those are all done, and then when everything's finally safety checked, then you can kind of take a deep breath. So I just wanted to say thank you for everyone who helped with that.
thanks. 4:30.
Port Authority met Tuesday, the 20th of last month. Normal business, paid bills and things, we proudly approved and passed on the 217D agreement. Since 2017, we've been working on this project, so it's a pretty big deal for the city, and I want to thank the staff and everybody that is involved with that. It's been pretty incredible. I think it'll be fun on coming Monday to see that get signed. Three Rivers came down and had a discussion with respect to identifying sites for multi-family properties. That was pretty interesting, and I think we'll continue to pursue that. Very helpful that we have the housing study done, and we find that we have a need for that. Bolton and Mink, our city planner, Christy Tristo, also gave a presentation with respect to the reroute Highway 60. And you know, just to say, oh, we'll reroute Highway 60, that sounds really easy, but obviously we all know that that's not the case. And she kind of went through the different processes that we'll have to take. It's a lot of work, but it's not unachievable to make all of that happen. I look at Tim because a lot of it's going to be in the planning commission. Of course, the pre-zoning and remapping and all the way back to when Brian did the work on mosquito field to get it off the wetlands and everything. So yeah, that was that. I think that was the one we talked about. Yeah,
Good.
yeah.
So Tony, parks and streets.
So our board met and they haven't met since April, so we updated them on our staffing status with full-time being all full. We've actually had some community service workers and they worked out good. Saved us some time, and then we give them pool status, park restrooms status after the flood. We gave them athletic field project update as well. And then we have a request for the city to mow out on River Drive. There's a section of land that's set aside for the park area, and the residents out there are mowing it for years on that. And so they wanted to stop mowing. They requested us to mow it weekly. We took it to the park board, and they told me we agreed to mow it like a couple times a year with the bigger tractor. Otherwise, we gotta run a lawnmower all the way out there and, you know, spend half hour in one. So we thought we'd try that first and see how that works. That was it for the park board. Street commission, we had a joint meeting with the utility commission to go over the Main Street downtown street project. Kind of same presentation that you all received. And then keep, if I got this right, Main Street signs. It will be closed like the 22nd,
21st.
21st, like Friday.
Right.
And then it'll say closed all weekend, but you'll still be able to access the businesses.
Yeah, that'll be pedestrian access at all times.
Okay.
During the construction.
Then the actual construction is not starting until 24.
No.
Okay, we had to do that because renters downtown, everybody's got to get it in their head, you know, got to find some place to park, so. And then, Riley, up front there, buddy.
And I think I was supposed to call on Riley earlier as well, so.
Trying to get out on speed.
So, Riley, recently got his 1 year anniversary here in the city. So along with other public works staff, he's completed his full operator's certification. And so he's learning with, like Matt, Brandon, and Steve. Everybody's kind of new, so this year's gonna be pretty interesting. We try to do stuff together so they can all learn the same. Riley leads the crew's daily operation. Our schedule is constantly changing. And with utilizing Microsoft Teams, he is kind of streamflow our work projects. The crew can easily pick jobs off the list and complete them electronically when done, which in turn lets Riley and myself know that certain items are complete. We got a grant, put up a smart board, guys can come in, touch the screen, log into a job, log out, completed, works really good. It's all set up on calendar. He's not afraid to jump in and learn new things, take control, help get projects completed. His past knowledge of project management works well with scheduling, getting material on hand, and in coordination with local contractors and suppliers. Riley provides weekly reports to city administrator and city council, which I'm sure you've all found very humorous at my expense. I'm the old guy, so Riley is actually teaching me some new things with electronic capabilities, spreadsheets, programs. So last but not least, Riley still enjoys snow removal, and we'll see how many years that lasts. But anything you want to say for speech? Yeah, I have one for Tony.
I promise to keep my speech just like Tony, short, but also sweet. 20 years ago, Tony Johnson started his career in the streets department and worked all the way up to our public works director. With all your years came so much wisdom, and I can say since working here, I have seen everyone rely on you for the knowledge that you possess. On my first day, Tony told me that he doesn't like seeing people standing around. I don't think I've seen any of us standing around since. The Public Works Department last summer went from 7 full-time staff to 4 in a matter of 1 month. From that, we experienced one of the strongest snowfalls on record and the 4th highest river crest in history. What else are they going to throw at us? I've watched you stay positive through it all, and I know that it has come from your 20 years of experience. The Public Works Department is very fortunate to have you at the helm steering the ship.
Better said than I could. Thank you, Riley. All right, and then let's see what they're in here. So planning commission.
We did not meet and won't meet this month.
Sorry. So when that extra work comes, we'll
Yeah.
deal with it. Yeah. Like lots of, zoning and land use changes, but we're sure it's all doable. All right, and then with that, we have a consent agenda that includes our June 6th regular meeting minutes, each part slide replacement quote, or replacement of public works desk, the July warrants, the city council's June, those are in the choice, right? June 6th, June 6th, right? Special city council minutes, which was from 6/13, as well as our June 26th meeting, gambling applications and credit controls are for it. For St. Elizabeth's Gravel and Chamber for Oktoberfest. And the liquor license update for the last session. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
We have a motion from Tim, a second from Brian. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
I,
I feel like you're right here with us, Stephen. We have a public hearing tonight on the tax abatement, for the athletic complex that might foreshadow for us, and you can join us again. And remind us how this works.
Good evening, council. First off, I'd like to point out that I'm doing my bit for the TZD. I work all over the state of Minnesota, so I'm constantly on the highway, and I'm not proud to say that I'm quite talented at eating a Big Mac, steering with my knee and checking my email, and I no longer do that, so. Okay, so the reason for the public hearing tonight has to do with the financing, which is later on in the agenda. So whenever cities borrow money, we have to have statutory authority to do so. And the financing that we'll be discussing later is actually paying for two separate projects. One is the ineligible costs for the street utility project that isn't being funded by the state of Minnesota. That's going to be done under separate authority using special assessments, but then we needed to have authority for the athletic. And we're very limited in what our choices are in that regard, and we identified tax abatement authority. That's one that requires a public hearing. And we had to identify enough parcels that benefit from the project. And it doesn't have to be a direct nexus, it just has to have some sort of a attachment value to it. That they benefit from the project and that their taxes over the life of the financing equals at least the principal amount of the bonds. Well, if you were to look at the resolution that approves the tax abatement, we actually identified more parcels and value than we actually ended up needing. But at the time when we were preparing for this, we had to be safe and make sure we had enough authority. As to those who may be watching, the parcels that we identified, I would just have you know that nothing is happening to your parcel. The tax abatements, I would rather just have you switch that word and call it a tax levy, because when you do these tax abatement levies as part of your budget and you send it to the county along with your other levy requests, the county doesn't assign it to those parcels. They spread it across the entire city, just like a regular old levy. This literally is a paper exercise. So nothing is happening to these parcels other than this paper exercise that I mentioned. So the length of the tax abatement is the same duration as the financing. And so it would start with taxes collected next year, 2024, and continuing through calendar year, collection year 2043. And the total that was approved is actually higher than what we're going to end up needing. Actually, what we're going to need is 1.735 million. And I think I had 1.755 million. I can't remember what was in the resolution, but ultimately it will be slightly less than what we needed in there. But nevertheless, we should adopt the resolution or consider adopting the resolution as presented to give us the maximum flexibility. So I'll stop there.
Very good. All right, we'll call for public hearing. Any questions before we do that? So we will start the public hearing at 6:35. Do you have any public comment? Yeah, all right. Do we have any public comments for this item? And we'll call once more for public comment. And we'll close the hearing at 6:35. All right, with that, we have our resolution that Mike is explaining for us before us. Do we have a motion to approve that resolution as presented?
so moved.
Thank you. We have a motion from Jeff. Can I take you as a second, Dean?
Yes,
All right, we have a motion from Jeff, a second from Dean. Any further discussion or questions? It was well explained before, and it's good to hear it again. Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are you a yay, Dean?
I,
Both same sign. All right, motion carried. Thank you. All right. We have under general business reconsideration of the 12th Street bike path. Dean, do you want to kick this off, or would you like me to do that?
I can do that if you can hear me okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was approached by quite a few citizens, and quite a few means over 13. About access from 12th Street. And looking into this, I found out that the street or the park commission was also in favor of this. So I thought I'd bring it back up for discussion. I've looked at the layout. We have access from Hiawatha, from Pierce, and this would allow us access to from 12th Street, and that would serve the 700, 800 block of 12th Street. And I'm ready for any.
Yeah, I too have been thinking about this. We talked about the safety implications if there were cars parked on 12th Street. I was envisioning, highest capacity use, so tournament days. I've been looking at ball fields ever since. And usually there's about 60 to 70 cars when there's 2 fields in play. That's what we're gonna have. We have 70 spots outlined. Of course, we have pool use, although pool use is usually diminished by the time the games are on, except for tournament days. So it's gonna be rare that we have street parking that's gonna be, sufficient to bound the street and create no visual access. And so I thought, that's a safety concern, which I think can probably be remedied, but if we don't build this, then we're limiting access for 362 days of the year for everybody that would like to come in at that point or has mobility issues that make it easier for them to use the park from that point. So Dean and I talked a little bit about it, and I said I'd be happy to put it back on the agenda too, but he'd talk directly with citizens, so. Any other thoughts? Anybody else?
I have
I'm-
one comment. Go ahead, Brian.
What's that?
Go ahead.
Oh, okay, I just echo what I presented last time, so we just spent how much time deliberating over a $25,000 repair to an ambulance. I mean, it took us forever to go and spend that money to do that. This is 70% of the ambulance just to pay to put that bike path out to 12th Street. I feel like due to circumstances, some beyond our control, we have been overspending. I think it was necessary with all the projects and things we have, but I also think we have to do a better job in put a lid on some things starting after all these big projects. Second thing, we heard it in the beginning of our meeting today. I biked on 12th Street since I was in kindergarten. I've lived a block away all but 4 years of my life, and the speed that people drive around all these streets, I'm even a little worried about our exit on the Pierce. Pierce is terrible as well. I'm hoping we can mitigate that by putting the stop sign back in on Pierce and 10. And any other things we can do. But kids aren't watching when they exit their driveways, they just don't. And I can't think of another city street aside from state highway and county in town that's busier than 12th Street. I think it's our busiest street. It's a major thoroughfare, school, exiting outside that way of town. And just because of cost and because of that, I just don't think it's a good idea to have it. I mean, there's no bump out coming off of that, so you can see clear cars when there is street parking. And the more you get to know the area, this is gonna be almost a destination. It's the shiny new toy in town. And I think we will start having more tournaments. So it may not just be once or twice a year. We could be having events there. And as people learn the area, they're gonna learn where to park, and we can start seeing bus parking out there. So we already did one thing for one neighborhood on restricting resident parking only. Are we gonna afford that same restriction when we have issues with bus parking on 12th Street? So that's my main reason for not wanting that exit out to that street.
Yeah, thoughts?
All right, I'll chime in here. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can.
Yeah, I did leave out that I did talk to a couple homeowners up there. And a few of them were, well, one was for it. A few were opposed to it. But also I feel that, like Brian said, we're gonna probably have more events there. And, in that case, if is parking on 12th Street, I would rather have them go diagonal 2 blocks, or, I mean, 2 cars to get to that, sidewalk. And I do understand his concern about overspending. I agree that you have to dial it in a little bit. But this was in the plan, and the park board did, recommend it. So anyway, that's just my argument, and I will leave it at that.
I just wanted to add one more thing. Just by coincidence, they had a wedding at residence on 12th Street, and so I sent a video to Carolyn and Wendy of me driving my truck down the street with car parking on both sides, and there's room for just me. And so, I mean, if we had any sort of two-way parking, you're waiting, one car's waiting for the other ones to go past. If there's car doors open, that basically eliminates it all, so. I just wanted, if you want to see that video, they have it, if you want to go and watch it.
I guess
I'll chime in. Okay.
I got contacted from a few people, and then actually, during the park board, they're like, well, why didn't we do the path? And then we brought up the concerns, and they were, you know, they didn't like that something was changed. You know, you guys handle the ultimate dollars, we kind of know that, we talked about that, but they thought an access from all sides of the park would have been ideal. So they were kind of bewildered at why this wouldn't be added in. It would have been in the contingency fund of the project. So that was part of it. And the street commission, we had a street commission meeting, and several of them asked, why are we doing the bike path on 12th Street? I was like, well, it's street commission, but so we talked about it, told them the same thing, and some of the members of the street commission actually live on 12th Street, and they're like, this would be ideal because you got Circle Drive kids, you got 14th court, and a lot of kids get out that way too, instead of going down Pierce, which Pierce is also an arterial street, the same as 12th Street, but I just wanted to pass on their concerns, and MG, I don't know if you wanted to, if you're here for that or not, or
Yeah.
the park board too.
I think. Thank you, Tony. Yeah, I think that, you know, as a member of park board, that we had just, you know, kind of talked about access from all 4 sides seems to be the most effective way to enter the complex. Access from Pierce and 12th would be the same in terms of people parking on both sides. And, you know, I know there are other concerns that if people are coming off of those bike paths that people can't see from the street. You know, one thought might be maybe have a bump out that it's marked off in yellow, so many feet back from each side of the bike path to say that, so there is a little bit of a clearance so that you can see from a little bit versus a street parking car being able to come and park right up to the bike path. You know, I just feel like it was in the plan. And then we talked about, well, maybe we look at it down the road, and my personal thought is, if it is something that we end up coming back and doing a few years later, likely the cost will be much greater than if we just do it today and do it right and do it the way it was intended to be done. You know, we've had a lot of meetings about this, not only this park board, but the steering committee that has gone into the park or the complex, and I just think there's been a lot of opportunity to get this out and talk to and get some, you know, discussion, and prior to this, they hadn't come up, so just wanted to share from the park board, where we were coming from.
Jennifer, I'm also on the park board, and I can we're having this access maintained or installed, and I know parking, as Brian said, is a big concern, but it seems to me you could have restrictions, you know, on one side insisted about the parks somewhere else, the parking lots were down along the other street. So I think there are ways to deal with this. And bike paths has actually improved property values, so that's another consideration. I do like the idea of a bump out paths, so there's more visibility, but it seems dangerous to me for the kids to have to go be on the road for greater periods of time to go around. So thank you.
Yeah, that additional time down 12 and then crossing on Hiawatha was brought up in the Parks and Trails plan as a concern, both going both directions, going left towards City Hall and Park Complex and also right. Nobody likes that corner. Any further comments?
I just, I think that the sooner we can get kids off the street, the better. And I appreciate what you said about the amount of money we spend on the ambulance, but you know, 17,000 is a lot of money. But this 17,000 investment will last the life of this project. And I think it's money well spent in the very long term. Because this is a long-term project. This is something we're gonna have. This is, you know, part of the evolution of our community. So I support the bike path, obviously.
Yeah, I don't think we should be, since we got the monies in the contingency fund already, we have to do this project right. We need to have this access. I think we should do this.
I'm hearing pretty unanimous comments, consistent with what I've heard from the public. So I don't know if anybody else has anything that they want to add. Does anyone else would like to make a motion?
Included in the project.
With a motion to a second,
Second.
with the first from John and the second from Jeff to include the trail list plan and the original plan. And we'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 I,
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
And I don't know if we can talk about all that we got. Yeah. Wait, who knows? Okay, now we have our actual resolution authorizing the sale of bonds. So Mike will join us again. We talked about this earlier. That might foreshadow that we need to wait until we can see what the bid results look like and have.
Yes, well, last time I was here, I presented my recommendations on how to structure, size, and sell the bonds. That included a competitive sale, and we opened bids this morning. It also included securing a updated credit rating Standard & Poor's. So since that last meeting, we prepared the official statement, which is the disclosure document that you share with potential purchasers. And city staff had a lot of help in preparing that. And they also assisted us in a management call. They had to prep for the questions, hour-long call. Caroline and Tyler did a fantastic job. And ultimately, we secured a AA- credit rating, so we should be proud of that. We took bids this morning. We usually anticipate getting at least 3 is our goal, but 3 to 5 bids is typical. And Tyler has up on the screen, you'll notice there's 5 total bids. With Robert W. Baird and Company being the low bidder, 3.83%. But if I could, Tyler, get you to switch to this page here, the map, the very first page of it. So when I was here a month ago or so, I had projected a net effective rate of 3.92%. So we're about 9 basis points lower than what we looked at a month ago. But something happened, which we fully anticipated, but we couldn't calculate. We never calculated until the bids were actually open. And Tyler, can I get you to scroll down a little bit? Right there. Notice on the payment schedules on the left, we have the principal payments, and then we have the coupons. The coupon rates are the actual rates that you'll be paying. The yields are the actual return that the underlying investors actually benefit from. And what's happening here is they are they're paying a premium, which comes back to the city, to slap a higher rate on the bonds. So the very first principal payment is $25,000. They would have paid $26,000 for that $25,000 maturity, just so that they could slap a 4% rate on it, and that generates cash. So then what happens is we calculate how much reoffering has been generated, And we use that extra cash to drive the bonds down. So while you see a 4%, you might ask, how can we have a 3.83 net effective rate when all our coupons are exactly 4%? It's because we're offsetting that with the cash that are coming forward. So Tyler, if I can get you to scroll up so we can see the source of the nuisance on the left, right there, perfect. So when I was here a month ago, I had proposed a bond issue in size of 3.35 million, but because of the reoffering, and you'll see it under the sources, the second line, it says bond premium, $102,000. We bought the bonds down by 100 grand. So while the interest rate slapped on the bonds is slightly higher, the fact that we're borrowing less, we're still doing slightly better. Over the life of the bonds, we're going to collect, or we're going to require about $76,000 less in total payments. So now spread out over 20 years in a city's budget, that's not going to be earth shattering, but everything counts, right? So ultimately, we think we had a good result. I can point out, Tyler, you're doing a fantastic job, by the way. Could you scroll back down into the revenues? So revenues, in order to make these payments, first of all, I had to do a couple of things. One is I bought down the bonds for the reoffering, and then I redesigned the principal as best I could to try and keep your tax levies flattish from year to year. The one exception is the very first year, just because of how they did with their interest rates, I couldn't get it perfect. So when you look at this, and I'm speaking mostly to Tyler, when you're looking at the budget, I want you to take that tax abatement levy column, and I want you to take that tax levy column, add them together, right? And if you were to do that, you'll see that that first one's about 20 grand higher than all the rest. And that's just the way it worked out. But then after that point, you see that I'm trying to keep it fairly flat as best I could. So that's a combination of what coupons and deals they had bid versus what they had pre-sold. So I was limited in how much of that I could do. Okay, so with that, I think we had a good result. We were right on track in terms of our planning, and I'll stop there and see the questions.
What's that plus 5% column?
That is made up. It's hypothetical. It's statute requires when we issue general obligation bonds in Minnesota that we design the revenue sufficient to cover the full payment plus a hypothetical 5%. And the reason is to help build some cushion for unforeseen events. So for instance, we have roughly what, $500,000 paid in assessments associated with the project. And the model is assuming those assessments, none of them are prepaid. And so the folks are going to be paying interest on those assessments over the 10 years. A bunch of those people might decide to prepay. Now, all of a sudden, we're not collecting the interest. And so that could impact our cash flow. We could have tax delinquencies in the city. So all of those kinds of things, that's the reason for the 5%. So if we follow the revenue stream perfectly, the potential would be to have a balance at the end of the deal, right? And then when the bonds are paid off, that balance would be free to use as we see fit.
Any other questions for Mike? Do we have a motion to put forward the resolution that's outlined for us?
So moved.
We have a first, do we have a second?
Here,
We have a first from Dean and a second from Brian, and further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Mike. This has been great. We've had worked out and get our heads around as we see it in print and then take action. Thank you so much.
So the bidders did submit 2% of the bond issue with the city's account as good faith deposit. So if they try to back out, keep their money and then redo this bid. That's never happened in my career, but we do it anyway. Closing will be on August 1st, and there will be no more work pretty much for the council, but poor staff has got a bunch of work. Oh, and I should mention, I apologize, I should have went over this before. Tyler, can you go up a little bit and to the right a little bit? You see something toward the bottom of the right hand side, there's something that says rebate, subject to rebate. Normally, most of my clients are small towns and they're issuing less than $5 million of debt in a given year. And when they do that, they can put money in their construction fund, and they can earn whatever investment earnings they want and keep it as long as they spend the money down in 3 years. But in your case, since you're spending over 5 million between this bond issue and your loan with the state of Minnesota for the utility portion, you're gonna exceed that 5 million. It's subject to rebate. You're still allowed to put money in the construction fund and potentially keep all earnings, interest earnings. But you have to meet a spend down requirement. And you have to spend it in 24 months, and you have to hit certain targets along the way. If you do that, earn as much as you want, keep it all. If you don't hit those spending targets, you can earn as much as what the yield is on the bonds, which is 3.6%. And keep that much, but anything you earn over that, you have to rebate to federal government. One of the things I mentioned to staff during our rating call, I think you agree with me, is that you should consider running the bond proceeds through the 4M fund at the League of Minnesota Cities. They work with an investment service, PMA Financial Services, and they will maximize your interest earnings. And then if you don't get your spend down, they can work with you to rebate any. And the reason that's important is you'll notice on the sources and uses, I only have $5,000 of interest earnings built in. I use the interest earnings as a rounding figure. You could see $60,000, $70,000 in earnings here. You can generate additional funds for construction if you wanted it. So I think it's just in your interest to do that. So I apologize for not bringing that up.
It's all right, now we'll leave on the lead. Thank you.
You got it.
Thank you.
Good night, guys.
Thanks, Mike. All right, and then we would like to. Oops, do our street assessment resolution first. We have our street assessment resolution before us, and Katie here to talk about it.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. You're awarding the contract at your June meeting. We're ready to take the next 2 steps, or 2 actions related to the street project. The first one would be consideration of the resolution, which is the next steps in the assessment process. So per state statute 429, you're asked to declare the cost to be assessed and set the date of the public hearing, which we're proposing at the next meeting on September. Within the resolution that declared the cost to be assessed, we're going to be determining what the interest rate would be, that will be put in the notes that is sent out to each individual property owner. Per our conversation at our last meeting, we talked about postponing interest accruing on these assessments until January 1st of 2025, beginning in your project. We also talked about the assessments not being due until January 1st of 2025. And so that is incorporated into the resolution and this evening. The other action that we're asking you to take is the work order for the construction administration services related to the project. So this includes things like our construction inspection, the labor compliance monitoring, that's part of the funding packages that you're using with this project, the materials testing, and then the contract administration that is related to pulling all that information together. I will note that the fees that are in this work order were part of the overall engineering costs that we have been talking about as part of the project costing and including the finance. So with that, I'll see any questions. That's good.
We have the resolution to declare costs and set the date for every hearing. If anybody wants to move to accept that.
Also, second.
We have a first from Tim, we have a second from Brian, and a third from Dean. All those in favor say aye.
I,
Opposed, same sign. Very good, and then we have our construction services agreement. So we have this work order before us. Does anyone want to make a motion to approve the work?
Yeah, move to.
We have a motion from John, a second from Jeff. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
I,
Opposed, same. All right, thank you, Katie. And Jeff, maybe without the meeting, I was at the meeting, the assessment, the 2025 date, that was all explained to everybody who came to the neighborhood meeting. It seemed like people, they seem to understand that. Did you have like questions?
I haven't any questions, and the amount that we're projecting today is going to be right about the amount that we provided them at the beginning of the project.
Great.
The construction costs came in very close.
Right. I felt like it was a very calm meeting. I don't know what you got for questions afterward, but it seemed like people were nodding their heads and.
Well, nothing, construction is construction, so
Right.
people aren't excited
Right.
about all of the
disruption.
Then just talking is gonna happen, but generally, yeah, we didn't have any, that.
Good, good. Well, thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
Have a good one. All right, and then we would like to appoint a council member to the Kellogg Greenfield Wabasha Trail Connection Joint Powers Board. So for anybody who's been following this, that there's been probably a 20-year discussion about trying to have a better connection up to Kellogg. I joined the Wabasha area bike walk advocates group when I came into office, and Craig was really involved as well. Some members of the bike committee, and of course Tony was representing us. The city with regards to connections that we could make. Shift has funded a lot of work in this area, and I kept saying until we have Kellogg at the table, I don't know why we're talking about this. Well, lo and behold, we have Kellogg at the table. They were really great. They responded to a grant opportunity with the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation and generated funds for a planning process, which was led by Bolton May. And we had a really good meeting. I wasn't able to attend the last one, but the one prior, we met at the county courthouse and we had representation from the county, and Dietrich was there, and a lot of head scratching about some of the existing infrastructure and what can be done to utilize any of that. So there's been a lot of enthusiasm that's just taken a long time to get to this point. So I'm excited to see this joint powers board proposed. I was certainly happy to serve on it, but I'm gonna go to these meetings anyway. So if somebody else has an interest, I want to be in that official role. We can one or two council members to get on that joint powers board. Does anybody else have interest? Or time? I know.
Time, I think, is my
Right.
problem.
It'll be an interesting, long, conversation initially here, because there is concern, from the county standpoint, they don't want to the county doesn't want to just own a trail. In fact, they'd probably like to divest some trail assets that they have, so that'll be one of the earlier things we talk about, but we're also going to have, I think Dietrich was working with somebody who's gonna do some pro bono visual analysis of the bridge piers, and it's much more promising in terms of people's enthusiasm about answering these questions than I thought it was gonna be. So we'll learn what we learn.
It was, Caroline wanted me to mention a few things to it. This is gonna take 5+ years. So it's not like anything's gonna happen next year. And money wise, they basically need to set this up because we don't want to start applying for grants that are 4 or 5 years out without having a governing board together. And we're talking Greenfield Township, there's Mark, and then City Kellogg, they have 1 or 2. County has 1 or 2, and then it would be us. So that's kind of where we're at. It's nothing's gonna happen like.
Oh, it's taken us 5 years to get to this point, so.
Right.
But there's significant, potential for just resident use, but also for tourism. We've written for some grants that if we'd had this connection, we would have been far more competitive. So I'm willing to work on it. I've been talking about it for 5 years already. I guess we'll keep going. So I would be happy to be on that joint powers group. Dean, do you have any interest?
Not at this time. I don't have transportation.
Yeah, we'll just keep everybody updated.
Well, I'll just volunteer.
Okay, super. So
Thank you.
if everybody's okay nominating Tim and I, we would entertain that motion. All right, we got a motion.
Think about it a little bit.
Yeah.
Make a motion.
Second.
I was gonna nominate Jamie's not here.
Yeah, anyway, we'll serve, and the meetings are efficient, and we learn a lot, so, with that, any further discussion, or call for a vote? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same
Aye.
sign. Thank you, we got you. All right, and now Brian's gonna read the donations, because there are a lot of generous donations in general, but also to fireworks this summer.
Okay, the first set of donations is for the library, $50 in memory of Joseph and Patricia Woodley Basic by Jeannie and David Woodley. $25 in memory of Dorothy Enebeck by Fred and Diane Schober. $250 Gary and Deb Blonsky. $20 in memory of Eunice. Oh boy, I should have corrected it. Solentich by Shirley Dow. $10 in memory of Eunice, again by the Mahjong Group. Another $25 for Eunice by student Jerry Dalen. $20 in memory of Eunice by Marianne Carr. $50 in memory of Eunice again by Amy and Michael Kovacs. And $1,415 in memory of Paul Cleese by family and friends. The last bit of fireworks donations, I think there's always some that trickle in later, but, David and Jean Woodley, $200. Norman Kathy Bouchon, $100. Hills Harbor Inc., $250. Rotary Club, $500. Ye Old Triangle Pub, $100, and our city engineer Bolton Mink donated $500 to the fireworks. And just thanks again to all businesses, individuals who helped. And we're got an ever compiling list to do a big thank you that we'll publish. But again, it's been great every year, so I appreciate it. Wabasha Pool, $300 anonymous for 2 dumbbell sets and 12 swim boards. Pool noodle and storage containers donated by John Stern and Jim. Your hammer? Okay, $16,000 by the Wabasha Kellogg area Community Fund Kids Swim Free Program. That's huge. Thank you very much. And then 1 donation to the athletic field complex of $1,000 by Daniel and Lisa Cook. And I would encourage everyone to keep donating to that project if you're able to. Thank you.
Do we have a motion to approve the donations?
I'll move.
We have a motion to a second.
Yes, I can.
Motion from Tim, second from Brian. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I.
Opposed, same sign. All right, thanks everybody. Oh, we motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Let's-
Second.
All right.